The second thing is perspective. Perspective. We need a shift in our perspective, and I think we need a constant shift in our perspective. And I certainly don't want to build a theology around a parable, but I do think there's something that Jesus highlights in Luke chapter 15. And I'm sure it's a well-worn for all of us text for certainly the understanding of the heart of our Father. It's about the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. And the parable of the lost son. It's amazing how the son, we know the story, he takes his inheritance and he goes and he squanders, and then he wakes up one day and realizes, I need to go back. Even my dad's servants have greater than what I'm living with now. And so he goes back and he goes humbly, and great story and all that. But we know about the older brother and the older brother's mentality, the older brother's attitude. And it's often referred to as like this, he doesn't rejoice that his brother came back, but it's because of his perspective. And so, he's working, he comes back, he asks his friends, servants, what's happening? And they say, oh, your brother's back and your dad has given him the best of everything. Ring and robe and shoes and fattened calf. And the brother's not happy. He's ticked. He's got an attitude about what's going on. And so the father comes out to chat with him, and he's like, what's wrong? I'm paraphrasing. And he says, I've worked for you all these years, and I've never left you, and I've always obeyed you, and I've always done this. And this is what he said, and you've never even given me a goat for me and my friends. But my brother, who blows it all up, gets rid of it, and then he comes back, and you give him the best of everything. And the father addressed his attitude by adjusting his perspective. And he looked at him and he said this, in verse 31 of Luke 15, my son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything that I have is already yours. Now just again, I'm not talking kingdom now exclusively, and I'm not saying everything we have is already here, but I do think we're so good and busy asking for stuff to prove God's with us, when God's already saying, I'm with you and you've got what you need. And so it does change our perspective. I think some of us are like, when we come out of COVID and when we get into the next thing and when the next thing opens and when we have breakthrough and we're on the verge of breakthrough and we keep preaching about on the verge of something, God's about to. The Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. And when we're always preaching God's about to, we leave people hanging for something that God maybe already gave us. And so all I'm asking us is not to have faith for the future. I'm asking us to see what God's doing now and to actually realize what we already been given, because it changes our attitude when we change our perspective. And so do shift our perspective. Let's operate in the now of what God's doing. Let's not wait something out when I get more people, when we can gather again, when we can have more than 100 people in our buildings, when we can do this, when we can. Those are real things, friends, and I'm not downplaying it, but I also want to say that God is with us now, and there's such talk about God bring revival. Well, God, I'm trusting for revival, but God's with us now. He doesn't have to give us a goat to prove He's with us. He's with us, and we need to recognize His presence now. Also, we don't have to have another breakthrough for God. Just trust and access and live. And that's challenged me. It's kicked my butt, if I can say it like that. Forgive me. Just how we're waiting for these things to happen. If you open up, God, I can't wait to get to the nations again. Open up. And while that's a real thing, and I cannot wait to get to the nations, certainly get back to South Africa. But I do want to say, there's stuff He's doing now, and we've got to look at the now and not always long for the breakthrough that maybe one day never comes. And I think a lot of ministries have been birthed around the next thing and the next thing and the waiting for God to, and God's about to. Friends, what is God doing now? That's where we got to get better. And I think it changes our attitude by changing our perspective. What do we have and what do we already have and who do we have right now is what God's saying. Work with what you've been given already.